I'm absolutely pumped to talk to you. I used to be a fifth and sixth grade teacher, and so I worked with kids for a really long time through a series of random events. I got into this place focused work, community focused work, and so this conversation is really kind of the meeting of the two worlds that I've had my feet in. So I'm excited to talk to you.
Well, thank you for having me on. And I'm excited that you're interested in this type of organization and the mission we're trying to accomplish here. And hopefully, I can give some insight on some of the things we're working on.
First things first, how did this idea come about?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the 14, probably the article you saw about me being 14 years old was me being appointed to my city's Charlevoix Downtown Development Authority. I had this crazy opportunity, which launched me to be one of the youngest people to serve on a local government board in the country. I was 14 at the time, and I was nervous out of my mind. And when I went on this board, there were people who were 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years older than me. And initially I thought, this probably isn't worth it. I'm going to embarrass myself. I have no idea what I'm doing. But I found out through the courage of making a comment or two that my perspective could be incredibly valuable because it was the high school point of view, a point of view that hadn't been represented all that much in community discourse. And what I did as I gained more and more confidence, I expanded my position from just me espousing my personal views to polling peers and bringing a student consensus. And that's when you saw the real crystal clear value to this position, because now it's not an opinion of a demographic, it's the actual demographic being brought to the board. And I would bring email polls, and I would go from lunch table to lunch table, and I would bring data as to how high schoolers in the community thought their downtown was running. And that was so useful. And I looked to neighboring communities of Charlevoix to see if they had a similar opportunity and to actually network with people who had a similar position to me. And I was shocked to find that it didn't exist. Not really. There was maybe one or two around me, which I couldn't see why. And I even asked this question to some of the local government heads in the various communities. And their answer was, well, we don't know. We don't really know. The initiative just wasn't there. So I worked with Boyne City, who is right next to Charlevoix, to create a position on their Downtown Development Authority. And that position then metastasized to their Parks and Recreation. And then their Planning Commission said, hey, that's cool. We want to create a position. Their library said the same exact thing. And just like that, you created 4 positions, which that significantly multiplies the number that was previous to that with just a little bit of push. And then the decision came to me to keep it confined to just this neighboring community or to develop this into more of a movement and have youth involvement expand to every corner of Michigan. And I chose the latter. I got a board of directors. We started raising funds. We filed paperwork. And here we are today. We've created 16 positions. It's been just about a year and a half. And we're working with many communities across the state.
This is just really incredible to me. And the fact that you really tapped into a need of so many of our communities in that so many of our communities are really struggling with how do we retain people? How do we communicate to our kids that this is a place that they can have a future and they should stay here and they should invest and put down roots and things like that. But meanwhile, like you, harkening back to what you said at the beginning, it tends to be a lot of older folks saying, well, we should do this, we should do this, well, we should do this. And meanwhile, the 25 and under crowd or 30 and under crowd, they feel like they don't have a say and they don't have an influence. And you're really filling that gap by saying, No, you 16-year-old kids, you can sit on the DDA board. You can be engaged. And like you said, your perspective is an incredibly valuable one because you're looking at it from the viewpoint of I am a kid, what do I want to see in my downtown? And that's a perspective that you lose as you get older. And so you're really tapped into a need that so many communities, not just in Michigan, but across the country, are just so desperate for.
Mhm. And that year and a half ago, when the organization started, we were in the midst of the COVID-19 lockdowns. And that means unprecedented decisions were being made at the local level, which made that decision to make this type of initiative into a movement all the easier because students have to be included in these type of discussions. And we're not making the claim that 16-year-olds are smarter than a lot of these other people serving on the local government boards. Certainly not. We're simply saying that more opinions mean better decisions, and it's that simple.
Mm. So give me the nitty gritty 101 how this works. You're referencing positions and creating positions, and obviously Saginaw's creating a position as well. But talk to me like I am a person. I have no idea what you're doing and how you're helping communities. So walk me through what exactly happens, how you advocate for these positions, and how these positions are created.
Yeah, so our process is broken into three different steps. The first step is us going to a community that has very few, or in most cases, zero student positions. And we're going to be presenting at various local government boards, typically your downtown development authorities, or your parks and recreation, or your libraries, and presenting the merits of involving youth in these types of organizations. And normally, if you're meeting with various heads, it's eventually created, the student position. And that's step one of the process, and probably the easiest. The second step is heading into schools and trying to convince students to apply for this type of position. A lot of students are familiar with community service, but it's a different type of community service, the ones that they're familiar with. It's more of an obligation. So let's say they're a part of honor society, which would require, I'm throwing out random numbers, but maybe 5 hours every month of community service. That is a different reason for serving your community as opposed to the reason of wanting to see it develop, as a reason for trying to bring an unprecedented voice into public discourse. And when students can understand that they can actually have some sway in their community, there is this spark of enthusiasm that is so much greater than any type of obligation for this quote unquote volunteering if it's required. It's quite incredible, and you'll get many, many applications for just one position. And then we have to have a selections committee. And the selections committee is comprised of two people who volunteer for Government for Tomorrow. They're community leaders, and then normally one or two people from whatever board has the student position, and they're looking for that student. And they're going to examine applications which were submitted, not based off of the credentials of a GPA or extracurriculars, but on how motivated the student is to be involved in their community. And they have to have that burning passion, that desire to represent their peers and to be involved in their local government. That is what our selections committee is looking for. And then I think maybe 25% of the applications, there's some type of threshold. The selections committee will interview that number and then pick one student who the selections committee recommends to the whatever board has created the student position. We've never had it where the board that created the student position doesn't go along with our recommendation. Once they accept the recommendation, the student is officially appointed to the local government board. And at this moment, the student normally makes history as one of the youngest people in their community, or the youngest person in their community to ever serve on a local government board. And then we enter the third step of the process, which is making the most effective proponent of the board possible. And we do this by breaking down things like Robert's Rules of Order, basic parliamentary procedure to make sure the student knows when to say things so they're a lot more confident when they do so, how to communicate with people who are older than you, how to effectively and objectively represent viewpoints that you may disagree with, but are your peers nonetheless. These type of trainings make the difference between just a student member who is oftentimes non-voting, which we can talk about later, but it makes a difference between just an advisory student and a regular board member. They can be essentially regular board members with the proper training. And this third step is ongoing throughout their term. We're checking in with the student, we're checking in with the local government board representative, we're checking in with the school. We want to make sure that all parties in this relationship are happy, and we try and be the best friend of the student throughout this whole process. That's the nitty-gritty.
Wow. Yeah, this is just so incredible. How did you reach out to Saginaw, or how did this relationship start?
I believe so. I think we did reach out to Saginaw. Yes.
What does the city of Saginaw stand to gain from this, and what does the student who's selected stand to gain from this?
Saginaw will gain a perspective which hasn't been always included in local government, maybe ever. And the Downtown Development Authority will be getting an opinion which they haven't had before. Now, this doesn't mean on every agenda item you're going to have a student commenting. That's something we actually do in our trainings, is help the student distinguish between like the capricious opinion and the prudent opinion, being thoughtful with your words so they don't just go in guns blazing. That's not what the DDA should expect. They should expect a thoughtful student who knows when to be quiet and knows when the agenda item is maybe esoteric enough that the student doesn't know how to properly comment. And then other times when they're going to bring not just their opinion, but an entire demographics polling numbers on a certain event that would be going on in the downtown, for example.
I just love this so much, Liam, you're so well spoken. Yeah, you're absolutely brilliant. I've been doing this work the community focus work for about 2 or 3 years or so, and in that time I've probably interviewed about close to 3,000 people, and I don't use that word brilliant lightly, and I don't don't want to inflate your ego or give you a big head or anything, but I'm saying that to encourage you because you are meeting such an important need in every single one of our communities, and not only that, you have the capacity to do it and to achieve it and to make it happen. And I know that you're focused on Michigan right now, and keep focusing on Michigan, because we need help, and we need assistance, and we need to hear more voices, especially from kids and youth. But man, you're ready to take over the world with this seed of the idea. You're just absolutely brilliant, and whoever is helping you, or your support system or staff or whatever, like anybody else involved, please give them my compliments, and I am cheering you guys on, because this is so critical for so many of our communities.
Thank you. That means a lot. It really does. To see the appreciation from the community and seeing that it's making an impact on the citizens who aren't in high school, that they too appreciate their children's children or their children being involved in the process, is rewarding for us to see that our work has that type of impact.